Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Anil Thomas. Coming up in the next hour. UN Chief Antonio Guterres condemns both the use of civilians and human shields and bombings in southern Gaza after an evacuation order. Israeli diplomats respond angrily to remarks made by Guterres. US Republicans elect Mike Johnson as their next speaker nominee in a secret ballot vote after a long stalemate. Newly formed Thai government mulls over buying a frigate instead of a Chinese submarine. Severe cyclonic storm Hamoon hits Bangladesh's southeastern coast. And in sports, Australia to take on Netherlands in the ICC Men's World Cup. Well, first up, the latest on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Well, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has called for the head of the UN to resign over his comments about the conflict in Gaza. In a tense meeting of the UN Security Council, Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Hamas' attack on October 7th did not happen in a vacuum. In response, Israel said he was justifying terrorism. According to Gaza's Ministry of Health, more than 5,000 people have been killed in the Strip since 7th of October. Some 1,400 people have been killed in Israel, with more than 200 hostages still being held in Gaza. Sally Patterson reports from New York, where the United Nations is headquartered.
Addressing the United Nations Security Council, Secretary-General Antonio Guterres didn't mince his words. He said he had condemned unequivocally the, quote, horrifying and unprecedented acts of terror by Hamas in Israel. Nothing, he said, can justify the deliberate killing, injuring and kidnapping of civilians. He went on to say it is important to recognise the, quote, attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. He said the Palestinian people had been subjected to 56 years of occupation. Now, Israel's UN ambassador Gilad Erdan described Guterres' speech as shocking. And in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, he called on him to immediately resign. His comments, Erdan said, constitute a, quote, justification for terrorism and murder. Israel's Foreign Minister Eli Cohen was in New York as well for the Security Council debate, but he said he'd cancelled his meeting with Guterres following the speech.
Saturday, October 7, will go down in history as nothing less than a brutal massacre. Saturday, October 7, is a wake-up call for the entire free world, a wake-up call against extremism and terror.
Meanwhile, member states called for de-escalation, with the United Kingdom warning attacks by Hezbollah on Israel's northern border and rising tensions in the West Bank could signal the wider region could become engulfed by war. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken was also in attendance, and he stressed there would be repercussions if the situation spiraled further. Now, concerns were also raised about the humanitarian crisis continuing to unfold in Gaza. Guterres said that while some supplies are now getting into the Strip, it is a drop of aid in an ocean of need.
Thankfully, some humanitarian relief is finally getting into Gaza, but it is a drop of aid in an ocean of need. In addition, our UN fuel supplies in Gaza will run out in a matter of days, and that would be another disaster. Without fuel, aid cannot be delivered, hospitals will not have power, and drinking water cannot be purified or even pumped.
UN fuel supplies will run out in a matter of days, he warned, calling that a disaster. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
Well, Iran has criticized the US in the UN Security Council for blaming Tehran for the Israel-Hamas conflict. Iran accused the US of escalating the conflict by aiding Israel at the expense of the Palestinians.
Today, the US Secretary of State once again attempts to wrongly place the blame on Iran. Iran categorically rejects these groundless allegations. Our commitment to the regional peace and stability remains unwavering. The US has further exacerbated the conflict by overtly aligning itself with the aggressor at the expense of the innocent Palestinian population.
Well, Israel's military said that its jets struck Syrian army infrastructure and motor launchers early on Wednesday in what it described as a response to rocket launches from Syria towards Israel. The military said it had identified 2 rocket launches from Syria that had launched in open areas late on Tuesday, and that it had responded with artillery fire as the source of the launches. The military did not provide further details. It did not accuse Syria's army of firing the 2 rockets which set off air raid alarms in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights on Tuesday. There was no immediate comment from Syria. Israel has traded fire with Lebanon's Hezbollah and militants in Syria in recent days, a wider conflict over its northern border as it battles Islamist Hamas terrorists in the Gaza Strip following a deadly attack in Israel. Earlier, we spoke to DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh, who joins us with more from Jerusalem on the Israel situation there. Well, what has been reported from the ground? Let's listen in.
That's right. It's day 19 of the conflict, and Israel has intensified its military campaigns, continues to fire targets inside the Gaza Strip. In fact, the Israeli Defense Forces say that last night itself they fired 400 targets within the Gaza Strip. Hamas officials are to be believed 700 people have died in the Gaza Strip in the last 2 days due to intensified airstrikes. But what Israel is doing is it's also the Israel Defense Forces and the Israel Air Force is dropping leaflets inside the Gaza Strip, asking people to move away because they will intensify their strikes, move towards the south. They say those who do not move will be treated as collaborators and they'll be responsible for their own deaths. Even while it does so, it's also throwing leaflets and audio messages, broadcasting audio messages inside the Gaza Strip, asking for specific information about where Hamas is holding the hostages, saying promising protection and money to the people living in Gaza. The Israeli Defense Forces are saying to get the hostages released. They see this as a measure of cooperation from the Gazan civilians. But the reports coming out of there, if they are to be believed, that's not cutting much ice because people are facing the brunt of the Israeli strikes. And also, Hamas, there is a certain amount of scare of the Hamas. So the civilian people are caught between the devil and the deep sea and are the worst sufferers in this. As far as international diplomacy goes, Emmanuel Macron was here yesterday. He met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the President and stressed upon the need for he first of all, reiterated France's support for Israel, but said, and in fact went on to the extent of saying that the wider coalition against ISIS needs to now start working on Hamas, treating Hamas the same way as the world looks at ISIS. So clearly drawing a comparison between them. But he also said that the first objective is to get the hostages released and see how civilians civilian population of Palestine's suffering can be reduced. So really, pressurizing the Benjamin Netanyahu government to take measures to reduce civilian casualties while expressing his support with Israel. Now, interestingly, the UN chief statement yesterday saying that the Hamas attacks didn't happen in a vacuum has, ruffled feathers here, with Israel calling for the UN Secretary General to resign immediately, saying that he stands with terrorists. So that has put a spin. But the Western nations are pressurizing Benjamin Netanyahu not to go in for a ground assault, even as the demand for the Israeli forces going in and fighting Hamas grows by the day here.
Well, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim joined thousands of pro-Palestinian supporters in Kuala Lumpur to condemn Israeli strikes in Gaza. Malaysia has long been a vocal supporter of the Palestinian cause and has called for a two-state solution to the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. The country does not have diplomatic relations with Israel. Well, Lead India correspondent Patrick Falk joins us live from Singapore. Patrick, good morning. Can you, in specifics, tell us more about the protests in Kuala Lumpur and what the Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has to say?
Good morning to you. Well, I mean, this was one of several rallies and demonstrations that have taken place in Muslim-majority Malaysia in recent days. But this was the biggest one that we've seen yet, 16,000 people, according to reports. And the first one attended by Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim himself. Reports say there were lots of people there donning the kafir, that's the traditional Palestinian scarf, many of them holding placards calling for peace in the Middle East. Prime Minister Anwar stood before the crowd at an indoor stadium in the capital saying that the conflict has reached a level of insanity where we're seeing people butchered and babies killed and hospitals and schools bombed and destroyed. And he said that it was the height of barbarism. And he also said that Malaysia stands with the Palestinian people yesterday, today and tomorrow. Now, as you said, Malaysia doesn't have any diplomatic relations with Israel. It's long been a supporter of the Palestinian cause and advocates a two-state solution. But this really speaks to the polarization that we're seeing in the world right now. And this has huge implications, a lot of people would say, for the West and its ties with many countries in this part of the world.
Well, there are also reports that there are some restrictions placed on protesters at some demonstrations. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right. We've read about some reports at least one of the rallies that took place over the weekend saying the organizers prevented some of the protesters from holding placards depicting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as the devil, and also with negative images of President Joe Biden. They also prevented people from using the Islamic chant, God is great. And, there were some frustrations among the demonstrators who said that the organizers appeared to be more concerned about the tone of the rally and being politically correct than with actually supporting the Palestinian people. The organizers, however, have said that, they wanted this to be an inclusive rally, that it wasn't about religion, and they wanted it to be multi-racial as well. And as some supporters have said at some of the protests that have been taking place in Malaysia, this isn't about religion, this is about humanity.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Appreciate you joining us. That is Patrick Falk reporting live from Hong Kong. Still to come on DD India News Hour. US Republicans have selected Mike Johnson as the next Speaker nominee in a secret ballot vote. Donald Trump's former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen testifies as a key witness in a New York Attorney General Letitia James civil fraud case against Trump. The former president denied all allegations. Thailand considers replacing Chinese submarine with frigate.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such change makers. Watch Change Makers on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Anil Thomas. The newly formed Thai government is mulling over buying a frigate instead of a Chinese submarine. This comes as the Chinese manufacturer proposed to replace the German engines with Chinese-made equipment. Thailand has already paid an installment of about $200 million to China for the purchase of one of the 3 Yuan-class S-26T submarines with German-made diesel engines. But the deal was delayed as Germany banned the use of its engines for Chinese military exports. The U.S. Republicans have selected Mike Johnson as their next Speaker nominee in a secret ballot vote on Tuesday. Republican Tom Emmer dropped out of the race just hours after he was selected as the latest GOP nominee. Mike is the 4th nominee put forward after 3 others failed to win enough support from colleagues and the 2nd nominee of the day. Johnson was selected after 3 rounds of voting. The House has been without a speaker and he's been unable to pass bills since Kevin McCarthy was ousted on the 3rd of October. Donald Trump's former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen testified as a key witness in a New York Attorney General Lelita James civil fraud case against Trump. Cohen accepted that he manipulated the values of former U.S. President's real estate properties on Tuesday. He added that Trump tasked him and other executives with doctoring the financial statements to boost the value of his company's holdings and to secure better real estate premiums. The testimony came during the 4th week of a trial in New York State Court in Manhattan. Meanwhile, Trump, the frontrunner for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, has denied any wrongdoing. Cooperation on critical minerals and bolstering infrastructure for the Pacific Islands will be on the agenda as Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese begins a 4-day visit to Washington. He received a lavish welcome at the White House as US President Joe Biden looks to strengthen the relationship with Australia as part of his strategy to counter China's influence in the Indo-Pacific region. DD India's Kate Fisher has more from Washington.
As the Biden administration is increasingly caught up in dealing with conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, the Australian leader's state visit will refocus its foreign policy back to the Indo-Pacific and its long-term interest in countering the rise of China. This state visit will include Prime Minister Albanese's 9th meeting with President Joe Biden in the past 16 months, showing just how important the relationship is for the US. For Australia, making progress on the AUKUS submarine deal will be a priority. The trilateral accord with the UK would give Australia access to nuclear-powered submarines for the first time, and it's widely seen as a counter to China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific region. But the pact faces hurdles in the US Congress, with Prime Minister Albanese saying that he'll meet US lawmakers every day that he's in Washington to highlight the need for progress. He also told reporters that he's focused on extending Australia's security alliance with the US into an economic and technology partnership as well. They will discuss a critical minerals task force to boost private investment in Australia's rare earths industry and to reduce global reliance on China. They'll also discuss infrastructure projects for the Pacific Islands. But Ukraine and the Middle East will also be on the agenda, of course, with the US president keen to show that he can manage the crises at hand while also furthering the US's long-term foreign policy objectives. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
Well, it's been a year since UK's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak took over from his predecessor, Liz Truss, whose radical economic policy crashed the pound and spooked the public and members of her own party alike. But a year on, polling suggests that the current Prime Minister is not doing much better. Stuart Smith has more from London.
It was October 25th when Rishi Sunak promised his government would be defined by integrity, professionalism and accountability at every level, trying to draw a line under previous controversies. His attempts to calm the markets during his first month in charge after a volatile few months were largely successful, but the start of massive health worker strikes and the chaos that followed represented a first major challenge to his premiership. The new year brought success where prime ministers before him had struggled in the form of a post-Brexit deal with Brussels over the contentious issue of the UK-EU border in Northern Ireland, and the rest of 2023 brought some Conservative Party success in some local elections, but they've lost more seats than they've gained this year, and those results are doing nothing to allay fears that the Conservatives are on track for big losses come a general election. Independent pollsters at YouGov now put his popularity less than it was to begin with across all areas of policy. The biggest fall was in how much voters trusted him with the economy, and around 3/4 of people asked don't trust him on immigration, the health service, the cost of living crisis or housing, key areas expected to be at the centre of the next election. But when asked, respondents said they still preferred him to previous Prime Minister Liz Truss and the Prime Minister before her, Boris Johnson. The Conservative Party are thought to be waiting until the polls are more favourable before calling a vote, but they have to initiate an election before the end of January 2025, and there's no guarantee he or his party's popularity will increase before then. In London, Stuart Smith reporting for DD India.
Well, Hungary's foreign minister has said that the country's parliament will make a sovereign decision regarding the ratification of Sweden's NATO bid. The minister gave the statement after speaking with his Turkey counterpart. The minister added that this will not change Hungary's position in any way. Sweden applied last year to join the defence alliance, but Turkey and Hungary have yet to approve the bid. Dozens of young Crimea conscripts left for the start of their active duty in the Russian army on Tuesday. A ceremony was held at an assembly point in the city of Simferopol in Russian-controlled Crimea. At least 130,000 new recruits were called up for statutory military service during the autumn draft campaign. A total of 2,000 men from Crimea are expected to join the ranks of the Russian army. All men in Russia are required to do a year-long military service or equivalent training while in higher education. IAEA DG Rafael Grossi and Prime Minister Narendra Modi met in New Delhi. Grossi praised India's responsible use of nuclear power and its advancement in nuclear science. He acknowledged India's global leadership role in civil nuclear appreciation for societal benefits. IAEA chief also met India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar earlier in the day. Prime Minister Modi emphasized India's commitment to safe and sustainable nuclear energy. Grossi is also expected to visit the nuclear facilities in Mumbai. Former Venezuelan lawmaker Maria Corina Machado defended the vote against government accusations that it had violated an electoral deal on Tuesday. Machado said voting in the primary was transparent from beginning to end. The vote came after the opposition and President Nicolas Maduro's government inked an election deal last week. The Opposition Commission has not yet released the final results. Machado has declared victory to choose the opposition's 2024 presidential candidate. A Panama court upheld a 128-month prison sentence for money laundering against former President Ricardo Martinelli on Tuesday. For settlement of criminal cases, the Superior Court also upheld a $19.2 million fine Martinelli had been ordered to pay. He has been sentenced to more than 10 years in prison in July. He was alleged for using public funds to buy a media conglomerate and give the former president a majority stake. Iceland's women went for a 24-hour strike over gender equality, including Prime Minister Katrín Jakobsdóttir, who said that the fight for equal treatment was moving far too slowly at home and abroad. Schools and libraries were either closed or operated on limited hours as the female staff stayed home. Hospitals only took in emergency cases, and thousands attended a rally in the capital. Iceland is regarded as the world's most progressive country in terms of gender equality and has topped the World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Index 14 years in a row. The strike under the slogan, "Do you call this equality?" comprising Icelandic women and non-binary individuals, was the first full-day strike since the inaugural women's protest in 1975. South Korea, meanwhile, plans to launch a nationwide vaccination campaign to contain an outbreak of lumpy skin disease in cattle after 29 cases have been reported since the first outbreak last week. Authorities are in talks with domestic and foreign companies to secure 4 million doses of vaccine by the end of the month. The highly infectious viral disease, which causes blisters and reduces milk production, is transmitted by blood-sucking insects such as mosquitoes, ticks and flies. It does not pose a risk to humans. Well, let's take a look at some other stories making news around the world. Over 3 tons of cocaine has been seized off the coast of Peru. Police have arrested 6 people in 2 anti-drug operations. Police said the drug consignment was transported by sea from the north of the country to Central America and the United States. A Panamanian court has upheld former President Ricardo Martinelli's prison sentence of over 10 years in a money laundering case. Martinelli is a front-runner in the Central American country's presidential election next year. Polish President Andrzej Duda held consultations with Donald Tusk, the leader of the largest liberal opposition grouping, Civic Coalition. Duda, who's an ally of the ruling Nationalist Law and Justice, is holding talks with all the parliamentary parties that won seats in the October 19th elections. Dozens of US states are suing Meta Platforms and its Instagram unit, accusing them of fueling a youth mental health crisis by making their social media platforms addictive. 8 other US states and Washington, D.C. are filing similar lawsuits against Meta, bringing the total number of authorities taking action against the Menlo Park, California-based company to now 42.
The financial industry.
1 crew member died and 4 others are missing after 2 freighters collided in the North Sea coast of Germany. According to the Maritime Emergency Authority, the bodies have been recovered along with 2 surviving crew members. The ships collided at around 3 hours GMT, about 12 nautical miles southwest of Germany's Heligoland archipelago. Scientists from Peru and Poland unveiled the face of a girl whose mummified remains were found in the Peruvian Andes of 1995. Experts reconstructed the face of the girl using 3-dimensional technology. The girl is believed to be 15 years of age. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Hurricane Otis is set to hit Mexico's coast as a Category 5 storm, making it an extremely dangerous one. Cyclone Hamoon has crossed Bangladesh's southeastern coast, Chattogram and Cox's Bazars at midnight. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Anil Thomas. A quick recap of the headlines. UN Chief Antonio Guterres says clear violation of humanitarian law in Gaza, condemns both the use of civilians as human shields and bombing of southern Gaza after an evacuation order. Israeli diplomats respond angrily to remarks made by Guterres. Severe cyclonic storm Hamoon hits Bangladesh's southeastern coast. In sports, Australia take on Netherlands in the ICC Cricket World Cup. Well, now for stories in detail. Hurricane Otis is set to hit Mexico's coast as a Category 5 storm, making it an extremely dangerous one. As per the U.S. National Hurricane Center, the hurricane, which was already in Category 4 on Tuesday, reached 233 kilometers per hour in maximum sustained wind speed. The center also further added that the hurricane conditions are expected within 12 to 24 hours for the stretch of coalition, causing fresh flooding and mudslides, which would possibly be a life-threatening storm surge. Where Cyclone Hamoon has crossed Bangladesh's southeastern coast, Chattogram and the Cox's Bazar at midnight. As per Bangladesh's weather department, the cyclonic storm moved northeastward and completed crossing the coast in the early morning today. The cyclone has weakened there into a land-deep depression. And this is near the southeastern port city of Chattogram, according to the weather department. This particular cyclone, the deep depression, is likely to move further inland and weaken gradually by giving precipitation. Well, DD India correspondent there, N. Parmar, joining us from Dhaka on what exactly is the situation on ground zero. Good morning. What's the situation on the ground, especially when it comes to, being prepared for this kind of, a backlash that the authorities expect?
Yes, due to cyclonic rain and tidal surge, low-lying area of Chattogram and Cox's Bazar went underwater, and several trees broken or uprooted due to the cyclone. However, there is no casualty reported yet. According to the officials of the Met Department in Bangladesh, that the cyclone moved fast toward the coast of Bangladesh, and hence it didn't get enough time to get strength. And so when it struck to the coast, it weakened to the deep depression, and it is likely to move towards the hilly area of Bangladesh, which is near to Indian border. And due to that, the splash flood has been occurred in many areas of the southeastern part of Bangladesh, like Chattogram, Cox's Bazar, Khagrasia, Rangamati, and Bandarban districts of Bangladesh. Meanwhile, Bangladesh Inland and Water Service Authority has suspended the movements of all kind of vessels in the Bangladesh water bodies until further order. And it is also advised to fishermen to not to venture into the sea until further order, to take a precautionary.
Yes. Okay. Which are the coastal districts, especially in Bangladesh, that have been or that have especially the security agencies ready for evacuations, and any Indian states, especially that are bordering Bangladesh, that need to be cautious with regards to, this particular cyclone and its after effects that Indian states could also face?
Yes, actually, yesterday there were a warning for the southern district of Bangladesh, which are in Borisal and Khulna division, but the cyclone moves toward the southeastern part of Bangladesh, and that is the Chattogram division. And in Chattogram division, there are the districts like Cox's Bazar, Chattogram, Khagarsia, Rangamati, and Bandarban district, which affected most due to the cyclonic rain and storm. And the Indian state of Mizoram, which is very close to the Chattogram division of Bangladesh. So it is very likely that Mizoram may receive rainfall due to the deep depression when it's moved toward the Indian side, and it is likely that today afternoon or day after that, Mizoram may receive rainfall according to the bulletin of the Met Department of Bangladesh.
Okay, one quick word before I let you go. This is paddy harvesting season. Are the farmers being advised, considering that this particular cyclone was coming, were they advised to, harvest it much earlier? Because if that's not been done, this could lead to huge losses.
Actually, very recently, I moved toward the countryside of Bangladesh, and it is still 20 to 30 days left for the harvest season. It is not perfectly the harvest season right now in Bangladesh. After 20 or 30 days, harvest will be started. So as far as the farmer or agriculture sector is concerned, there is no much damage occurred due to this cyclonic rain or flood. Yes, there are certain crops which are more sensitive towards the untimely rain. They may get affected, but as far as the paddy is concerned, there is no much damage to the paddy crop as soon as.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us this morning from Bangladesh there. Moving forward, let's take a look at some other stories making news. The 5G and Beyond Hackathon 2023 is going to be held in New Delhi on Wednesday, giving a winning amount of 1 lakh. The goal of the hackathon is to identify and promote applications relevant to India in the 5G and beyond realm. Two Indian-American scientists, Ashok Gadgil and Shubhra Suresh, have been awarded the national medals in the field of science and technology by US President Joe Biden. Ashok Gadgil was awarded the National Medal of Technology and Innovation, and Shubhra Suresh was awarded the National Medal of Science. The second meeting of the One Nation, One Election Committee under the chairmanship of former President Ramnath Kovind will take place in Delhi today. The committee is formed to look into the feasibility of holding not only Lok Sabha and Assembly elections simultaneously, but also elections to municipalities and panchayats. International Kulu Dashera festival commenced with the traditional Rath Yatra of Lord Raghunath at the historic Rath Maidan in the Indian hilly state of Himachal Pradesh. The festival will continue for 7 days till the 30th of October. A U.S. court has charged Haitian gang leader Vitel Home innocent for his role in the plot to kidnap an American couple and the death of the wife during the incident in October last year. According to the court documents, Innocent's co-conspirators kidnapped Jean Franklin and demanded a ransom or as much as $150,000 for his release. Well, Wall Street ended higher on Tuesday as a spate of solid corporate earnings and upbeat forecasts stoked investor risk appetite and sparked a broad rally. All three major U.S. stock indexes advanced with interest rate sensitive mega caps providing much of the upside lift as benchmark treasury yields held steady, comfortably below their recent spike to 5%. Third quarter earnings season has shifted into high gear, and this week nearly a third of the companies in the S&P 500 are expected to post results. Google's parent company Alphabet Cloud business crawled to its lowest in at least 11 quarters, sending the company's stock down 5.7% after hours, even as the sales of rival Microsoft Cloud unit boomed. The drop in Google's share price, despite beating Wall Street's estimate for profit and sales, show how much investors want the company to deliver gains in artificial intelligence. Fears of a slowing global economy have prompted companies to curb spending on cloud-related services, including expensive AI tools, which have slowed revenue growth at Google's cloud unit. And it has now dropped to 22.5% in the third quarter from 28% in the prior 3-month period. The Bridgestone World Solar Challenge in Australia's Darwin City brings together teams from across the globe to participate in an over 1,800-mile-long race and push the limits of technological innovation. Teams usually comprise of university students who are engineers and build the vehicle. The event is designed to showcase a variety of forward-looking EV technologies. This year, prototype Bridgestone tyres are being tested. The Hunger Games is set to open at a London theatre next year in a first live stage adaptation of Suzanne Collins' novels and the hugely successful film franchise. Irish playwright, screenwriter and director Conor McPherson has adapted the first book in Collins' young adult dystopian trilogy and the first film from the Lionsgate movie franchise. Well, after 10 days of festivities, it's the end of the Durga Puja for Hindus, the time of the year followers of the faith pay homage to the Hindu goddess Durga. Our correspondent Stuart Smith went along to a celebration in London to see how the annual event was being marked there.
Insulated from the grey London October, Camden's Durga Puja is bursting with colour.
This time of the year is late autumn, and this is when we worship the goddess, the female force. She can be from divine to the demonic, but she's called Shakti, or the power.
It was in 2021 that UNESCO put the Durga Puja on its list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity, but it's been marked in London's borough of Camden for 60 years, the oldest one to take place outside of India.
A group of very enthusiastic Bengalis wanted to do a puja. Puja means worship. And they asked an editor of a very leading Bengali newspaper to give them a statue so that the statue could come and they could worship. And so the statue was sent by ship.
The festival is known as a time to mark a return to one's roots, and the smells, sounds and colours of home are a reminder for Hindus in London of their values and heritage.
It's very liberating that a 3,000-year-old religion keeps the mother goddess and a woman at the centre as a Shakti, as the whole divinity from where the mother goddess comes. It's very empowering for us Indian women, for us women who always feel that we are doing 100 things at the same time. We have a goddess here who's got 10 hands, who denotes exactly that, a woman doing every single thing under the sun and still being successful as a mother, as a homemaker, in careers, in everything that we do.
Well, primarily a chance to honour the goddess Durga, it's also a chance for the Indian community here in London to gather and meet, which is so important when so far away from home. While the majority present are brought up in India and have moved to London, they're mindful of the next generation who may never have seen a Durga Puja in India at all.
Most importantly, our second generation, our kids, because we are away from India, we want to show our kids the rich culture that we have, how much respect we have for women in our culture, and we are allowed to do anything as a part of Hinduism. There is no rules, you see, and women can lead. So that diversity, that inclusiveness as a part of Hinduism, we want to show that, and we feel proud and make them feel proud as well.
For the 400,000 Londoners who identify as Hindu, the organisers say they feel privileged to bring the ancient goddess to modern life in Camden. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. Australia all set to take on the Netherlands in the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup in Delhi today.
Welcome to a happy place. To nature's warm embrace. uniqueness, the power of faith, fruits of hard work, and protectors of Mother Earth. Unique in every way. Discover something new every day. A small state with big ambitions and a bigger heart. Mizoram welcomes to love, laughter, and celebrations.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Anil Thomas. Bolivian firefighters and volunteers continue to battle the fires raging in the forest close to Mariris National Park, a protected area in the northwestern Bolivia. According to the government report, there are 16 active forest fires in 4 departments of Bolivia, with the La Paz region having the most significant affected areas. The fire has consumed extensive crops and is now approaching Mariri National Park, one of the country's most important biodiversity reserves. The authorities have deployed helicopters to help firefighters on the ground. International Artist Day honors artists and the contributions they make towards society. The day also pays homage to one of the most celebrated artists of the last century, Pablo Picasso, as his birth anniversary. DD India correspondent Kriti Vatera has more.
This year, UNESCO encouraged International Artist Day by the theme Art is Good for Health, so as to promote the importance of art in our lives. Inspired by the Cubism art form of Picasso, Dr. Neerja Chandana Peters, a medical practitioner, left her 2 decades medical career to pursue her passion towards art as full-time artist. Her artistic journey is published in many prominent international journals and magazines. Being an Indian artist, you have abundant of international exposure also. So how many countries you have represented India?
I have been fortunate in representing India in 42 countries so far. Recently had a solo exhibition in United States of America, and I've exhibited in UK, in Turkey, Philippines, and many more countries. If it is your passion, then come what may, you must follow it.
Art became a form of meditation for her, as she found her language and spiritual heritage through abstract geometry. With the rich ethnicity of India, numerous Indian artists are leaving their artistic imprints on global canvas,
With camera person Vishwabandhu, I'm Kriti Vadhera, reporting from New Delhi for DD India.
Well, you're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for all sports updates. Starting first up with what's in store in the Cricket World Cup today. Australia will play against the Netherlands in the national capital. Australia looks set to welcome back Travis Head from injury, while the Netherlands needs some runs from the top order. Well, if you take a look at the head-to-head records between the two sides, Australia have bounced back to winning ways and have built a two-match winning streak. They are currently 4th in the standings. Netherlands are 7th with a win and 3 defeats. Remember, Netherlands surprised the South Africans by beating them by 38 runs. But the Dutch have also lost to Sri Lanka by 5 wickets. So there are plenty of positives, especially with the return of Travis Head. How does Australia look at this particular game? And both sides have faced each other in two ODIs, with Australia winning both. And Australia, there is one fun fact that Australia have against their name, which they would like to overcome. They are the only team that have gone wicketless 3 times in the first power play in this World Cup. While Quinton de Kock continued his sublime touch in the World Cup with his 3rd 100 of the tournament in just 5 innings. The wicketkeeper batsman smashed a brilliant 174 as South Africa piled 382 for 5 against Bangladesh at the Wankhede in Mumbai. De Kock's knock saw his own record of highest score for a designated wicketkeeper in World Cup history, going past Adam Gilchrist 149 in the 2000 final against Sri Lanka. The left-handed batter also became the first South African batter to score 3 centuries in a single World Cup. Indian athletes added 17 more medals to their tally on Tuesday in the ongoing Asian Para Games in Hangzhou, China. So far, India has clinched a total of 35 medals, which include 10 gold, 12 silver and 13 bronze. In the men's discus throw, sweeping all the 3 medals, Neeraj Yadav bagged gold, Yogesh Katunia claimed silver and Muthuraja claimed bronze. Sharat Makkanhalli Shankarappa clinched gold in the men's 5,000 meters event, clocking 20 minutes and 18.90 seconds. He has beaten Nabil Khalid Ahmed of Jordan by just 0.01 second. Ankur Dhama bagged gold in the men's 5,000 meters event. In the series of social media posts, Prime Minister lauded the performance of the Indian medalist. India has sent a contingent of 303 athletes who are participating across 17 disciplines in the Asian Para Games. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, and also on Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Anil Thomas. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.